So thank you so much for coming today. My name is Mark Triglione, and I am the 2024 president-elect for the Greater Boston Association of Realtors. The 2024 president, Jared Wilk, could not be here this morning, but he sends his best and hopes to have a chance to see all you in person this November in Boston. Just so you know you're in the right room this morning, this is the NAR NXT webinar, Your Questions Answered. And we have two incredible people here today who are also substantial resources as volunteer leaders. They've made an impact at every level in both the lives and businesses of many realtors across the state of Massachusetts, but also the country. And to give you a little bit of a short background on who they are so you know why they're the ones answering your questions, Steve Medeiros is the 2024 New England Region Vice President for the National Association of Realtors and an NAR Director. He's a team leader for Keller Williams Realty in Southeaston and a past president of the Massachusetts Association of Realtors. Gary Rogers is a member of NAR's extended leadership team this year, where he serves as Member Services Liaison. He's also a member of the NAR board and previously chaired the NAR Meetings and Conference Committee when they were last here in 2018 for NAR Conference in Boston. Gary's the broker owner of RE/MAX on the Charles in Waltham and also a past president of the Massachusetts Association of Realtors. I'd also like to just give a shout out. I see some past presidents and maybe even future president of the Massachusetts Association of Realtors in the room. So just thank you to all of you. We're going to get going by letting Gary and Steve tell you each a little bit about some of their favorite aspects of the convention. Then I'm going to ask them some follow-up questions to fill in. And again, we will have a Q&A at the end. And just to remind you, if you could try to put your questions in the Q&A section, not the chat, it just makes it a little bit easier for us to keep things organized. One more point before I hand it over to Steve is just a touch on the pricing. So the pricing goes up July 1st. So it's really the perfect time to take this webinar and make some decisions, because if you want to get in, the time is to get in before that, before June 30th. The price goes up from $450 to $550 on July 1st. So it's, again, something you want to keep in mind and get in now. There are some other options for you that we'll discuss later on. But again, July 1st is the date when that price goes up. So in order to get into the meat of why you're here, I'm going to hand it over to Steve. Take it away.
Thank you, Mark. Happy to be here. All right. So just wanted to kind of go over some kind of just general stuff when you're thinking about the conference. And so for those who have never been to the conference before, you basically got kind of three components to really what the conference offers. You've got the education, which is there's educational sessions that you can go to individual classes on specific topics, and then they have general session topics as well, where you're in a larger room with bigger speakers, bigger name speakers. You have governance, which is when all the different National Association of Realtors committees and members from all across the country sit on these committees are actually meeting and discussing the topics for their particular purview that they cover for their committee. And then that all gets a lot of those items that might go in front of the board of directors of the executive committee will then go in front of those committees and the board of directors meeting, which is pretty cool experience to watch when you have like over 900 directors from across the country doing the business of the association. That's a really great opportunity. And then you have the networking and the fun stuff. And that's where you get to meet a lot of people just in the halls, but then also go to other fun activities that they have. And so Gary's going to cover a bunch of things that are going on, some really kind of special things we're doing at the conference a little bit. I wanted to go over a little bit of the education stuff and the governance. And, Mark mentioned, the different passes that you can get. The pass he told you about for the pricing is the Premier Pass, and that gets you into everything. And that's something that if you're going to commit and go to the conference for the entire time that it's open, I would definitely get that pass. It's a really good bargain for what you're going to do. But there are one-day passes. So if you're really busy, you got things going on in your life, or just cost-wise, you're trying to afford going. There's one-day passes that you can go for just the expo, or just a one-day pass to go to sessions. And I know people who've done that in the past in other parts of the country. And I have friends who've popped in just for one day. If you have somebody that you want to bring with you, there are guest passes as well. So you can actually bring a guest with you that can attend. I brought my wife to conferences in the past, and she's attended some sessions. So it really depends on what you're going to need and what your level is. One of the things that and we're going to get into this a little bit, but as far as stay, you can stay at one of the spots in Boston at the hotels that they're going to have available. Majority of the hotels are going to be in the seaport. So if you're familiar with the city, getting down to the seaport, that's where most of the stuff is going to be happening. There will be some additional hotels kind of in Copley Square area as well. So just on the education aspect of things, one of the things that I didn't do the first time I went to a conference, and so this is actually this will be my 10th national conference, actually no, 11th national conference, but my first year going, I didn't know that I should plan out things ahead of time. I just showed up and was like, oh, I'm going to go to something, and then I didn't know what I was missing because I didn't look at the whole schedule ahead of time. So that to me is the most important thing. So before you even decide to get a ticket, I would suggest you go to the website. So that would be NARNXT.realtor. So again, that's NARNXT.realtor. And I would go there. I would actually take a look at the page, and I have it up on the screen to my left. And you can actually click on the schedule and you can sort it by different topics. So you can clear out a lot of the other things that you may not be interested in if you're just looking for education at first, and just decide, are there sessions I want to go to on various days? Maybe it's worth me paying for the full pass and going to everything. Or am I really only going to be attending on one day? So I would definitely look at that. And then there's a scheduling app that you can get. So there's an app for your phone, and you can actually start plugging in your, the things you want to take. And so what I did initially was I just went through and I just like, that's interesting. And I just kept adding the things I thought were interesting. So I got them onto my schedule. And then I went back and looked at my schedule and said, okay, now I got to kind of narrow it down and say, what session am I going to go to? Sometimes I would leave 2 at a particular time slot, because if I went to a room and it was already full and I couldn't get in, I'd have a backup one. Or say I went in and it just wasn't resonating with me. The topic that they described wasn't really what I was expecting to get. I had something already on the calendar. I could pop out and go to something else. And most of the classes are all pretty much near each other. So that's one thing. So that's the main, just the educational classes. The general sessions, in my opinion, are almost always really great. I can really only think of maybe one, and all the time at that I was like, I wish I hadn't gone to that. They're usually really good speakers, good content, good information that you can take back to use in your business, to use in your personal life, just to talk to people about, have just and just know what's going on. So I would definitely attend every general session that they have available. They're even the ones that for the Good Neighbor Award, people are like, oh, I'm not going to go to that. Those are some of the most impactful things for me that have inspired me to do more in my life and in the world. So I would definitely try to make sure you attend all of those sessions, and even some of the fun stuff that Gary's going to be talking about as well. Here's the great thing. Now, Mark talked about, myself being involved and Gary being involved, and obviously Mark's involved as well at his level currently. But all throughout my time, it's how can you get involved? How can I give back, right? And how can I make a difference in the organization? And so my recommendation is that you actually go through the governance schedule as well and look for committees that cover topics that are of interest to you, right? So my passion is government affairs, policy type stuff that makes a difference in our industry. Other people like, the MLS side of things, and other people like the policies and procedures that happen within the association world, or they like, the what we're doing with our media campaign with, that's who we are and all the things that we do around that type of stuff. So I would go on and look at what are those different committees. And if you're not sure, reach out to some people that who've been around for a while, but then figure out from those committees that if there's a time slot you can go in. And most of the committees are open. Some are closed because they have specific things that they cover. But most are open, and just go in and sit in the back and listen to what they're talking about. And it'll give you a good idea of maybe something that you might want to apply for next year, because the application process opens in March for committees. So you wouldn't be able to serve next year, but you'd at least know what you want to apply for in the spring of 25 to be able to serve in 26 on an NAR committee. So I would definitely go and look at that. If you have the ability to hang around for the last day of the conference for the board of directors meeting and show up for that, I think you're going to see a really eventful meeting when we're going to be going over the budget and how things are going to change, especially with everything that's happened with NAR over the past year. And I think it's going to be a really good experience to see the work of the association happening in real time. So it's a really impactful thing. My first time walking into the room, I was like kind of like taken back by how many people were there. So that's what I would say is the things that you want to definitely be working on. There are going to be shuttles that are going to be running around for the conference as well, going around to all the different hotels. They'll be having that as well. So you don't even have to bring your car in if you don't want to. So there's going to be a lot of opportunities. Actually, one of the years, the one we had it in Boston, I actually took a car in. I took a car and my wife drove up and then parked our car because she came in a few days later, and then we drove back together. So that just we could save a little bit of money on parking in Boston. That's kind of what I wanted to cover for now. I'm sure we're gonna have some more questions we'll be able to talk about.
Thank you so much, Steve. You covered some great points that I'll follow up in when I ask you some direct questions, but things like double booking classes so you got to back up if one's not just for you, or things like getting in those committee meetings. It's just so valuable. You're not committing to serve for a year. You don't
Absolutely.
even have to stay, but you can really catch the vibe and kind of get the flavor of what happens at that level. And you know, even if you don't want to do it, you can bring something back. So thank you so much for all that. I'm certainly going to follow up on a few pieces of it, but Gary, if you will, please take it away.
Yep, great. So for me, I'm going to explain some of the other things to do besides classes. And so this year is our second year of kind of a new format where most of our sessions are in 60-minute pieces, but they've added shorter pieces like Ed Express and Text Accelerate, which are 20 to 30 minutes, sometimes a little less, sometimes a little more. And they're fast, hard-hitting, get in, get your information, and move on to the next one. Really good for those of us with the ADD. There's also, they're working on a PR workshop. One of the better attended sessions a year or two ago was PR for Realtors, which taught agents how to work with the media a little bit and try to get their name out there and be interviewed and so forth. There's going to be a lot of lunch and learns. There's tons of networking in the expo floor. That's your opportunity to find out more about any products or services that could help your business, build your business. It is absolutely a valuable thing, especially for team leaders and broker managers, because you can also look at some of the higher level products like E&O that normally an agent wouldn't have access to. But for a manager or a broker or somebody in charge, it gives you a good chance to just interview these service providers and make sure that they're a good match. I know I've changed a few times into products and services because I was actually able to talk to the people that run it. A really fun thing is a welcome reception on Lansdowne Street. And when I say Lansdowne Street, I do mean all of Lansdowne Street. So they're going to be blocking off the whole piece of around the Fenway. You'll have access to restaurants, bars, lounges, entertainment. The MGM Center's there. It's going to be a fun night. And then, of course, the Realtor Relief Run. This is the second running. The first one was here in Boston in 2018. It was a lot of fun. We raised a lot of money for the Realtor Relief Fund run. If you've been watching the news at all, the need has never been more. And then, so a nice time off from maybe the classroom, or if you're bringing a guest, is the field experiences. So those are half-day off-site tours. There's some that are pre-conference as well, Wednesday and Thursday. And here's one of them. The Boston Green Scene talks all about the sustainable design and renewable energy in the Boston area, and it's going to highlight some of the buildings, and some of which you'll be able to walk through and be shown, what we're doing here in Boston with some of the sustainable efforts. And then another one, which I can't wait for, I've never had the opportunity, and let's face it, most of us in Massachusetts, how often do we get into Boston and see that side of Boston? Hardly ever. So the Boston architecture by boat, that's going to be amazing. Panoramic views of Boston, a lot of discussion about the seaport, the history of the area, and most importantly, the architecture. The Charles River Basin, I have been at a tour. The history of how that all developed is amazing. So if you can go to that, please do. For those of you that don't want to be on a boat, Boston architecture by land, that's going to focus on Beacon Hill in the north end. That should be really interesting. And then again, as I mentioned, the Lansdowne Street Party, that is on Friday. Just a great area to just meet up with friends, meet new friends, relax a little bit and have some fun. So on the new education formats, the Ed Express is going to be Friday and Saturday. They'll be running all day long. Again, 20 minutes of very focused content, tools, and takeaways. Get in, get out, get the content, and move on to the next one. On Tech Accelerate on the Sunday, the 2-hour lab, that's actually going to be a hands-on. So don't forget, if you have a laptop or a travel laptop, bring it with you, because these are absolute, very powerful experiences to be able to actually do it instead of sitting in a class and forgetting how to do it later. So the Realtor Relief Run, there are 4 categories. Frankly, if you want to walk, if you want to crawl, if you want to sit on the sidelines, we're fine with that. But do be part of the fun. It was a blast. I have to admit that the stayed in bed was my category. I had mentioned to Kelly Patala that we should have a special one because it's kind of early. And so she volunteered that it's a stayed in bed Gary category. That will charge you twice as much for that ability. But in all in fun, there's actually a fun T-shirt that will say I stayed in bed for Realtor Relief. So that's kind of probably worth the extra money. And then so if you have any questions, we encourage you to follow us on these platforms to get the latest information on NAR's NXT. As Steve said, there's, let me change over here, sorry. Let's stop sharing. It's really important to look at the schedule ahead of time and know your options and plan your day. That's how you're going to get the most out of this experience. Those of us that have been to a lot of these can tell you we walk away very energized. Don't we all need that right now? We could use a little pump up. And for me, this is my retreat to get pumped up and just experience a lot of different content, walk away, best practices, and so forth. So register early, register soon. And if you can't get into one of the bigger hotels, don't worry. There's tons of hotels. There's Airbnbs all over the place. If you are going to get an Airbnb or a secondary hotel, just look for the shuttle schedule, because you could always walk over to another hotel that has a shuttle that will get you out to the conference center. So
Great tips, Gary. Thank you so much, and thanks again, Steve, for kind of all that base information. Just to cover a few quick points before I ask you some questions. That Premier Pass, which is $450 up until June 30th, does go up on July 1st to $550. There'll also be some volunteer opportunities. I know that there are some big volunteer leaders in the room. So if you do want to do something there that's a little bit extra G-bar, there'll be a booth that we have at the convention center where we're going to be talking to out-of-towners or people that aren't familiar with the city on what to do, how to do it best, how to save money, or how to get great experiences. So if you know the city and you're interested in something like that, please reach out. There'll also obviously be volunteer opportunities with the Realtor Relief Run. But to kind of move on to some questions for Steve and Gary now, to kind of get you again a little bit more value while we still have you. One of the things I've taken most out of the convention is some of these sessions. I didn't think it was going to be that, but it was. So I know both of you have been to a lot of conventions over the years. Do you have any sessions that particularly stick out to you, or is there anything that you would, any sessions that you'd particularly recommend as can't miss? I'll start with you, Gary, I guess. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, so, and I'm still, with my role, I still am involved with meeting and conference, so I get the sneak peek, right? There's a few that are right away on the first day or two that are pretty hard hitting. There's one that to team or not to team, and has 4 practitioners with very different approaches on how they've built their team, whether it's on culture or systems or whatever. There's another one with Matt Rathbun, who's a great speaker. 10 underutilized NAR tools for your business. It is amazing how many members are not aware of some of the tools that are out there for us that are part of your membership. Building for Tomorrow, a business planning workshop, that's being held by Natalie Davis, who's a fantastic speaker, very intuitive type of sessions that help you plan for your 2025, which can't find a better time in November to start digging in and actually putting pen to paper and figuring that out. Then the last one, which I think is probably the most entertaining and fun, is Cracking the Code, Mastering TikTok Content. There's a realtor in Maryland, Lauren Matera, who is hilarious. It's that real estate chick on TikTok. She's very entertaining, but most importantly, her content. Her first year in real estate, she happened to be on TikTok and playing around. She ended up putting a lot of great content, and she had 18 closed deals from her first year in real estate, all from TikTok leads. That could be agent referrals or even the public. So those are kind of my 4 choices that I will not miss. I think they're going to be great.
Steve, did you have anything to add to that? I mean, that was a pretty robust answer, no surprise, but
Yeah. So it's funny because I had to team or not to team because I think that's a big topic right now. That was one of the ones that I had picked, and the panel is a really great panel of speakers that I've seen in the past that I think it's going to be good. Because the content's important, but I think the speaker and how they deliver is important as well, and so that's always good. There's a couple speakers that I kind of like to highlight as well. Like, so Marky Lemons Ryle is always a great speaker. So if you're ever able to attend one of her sessions, and she's smart too, and she usually always has good content. That's one that I would definitely look at. Anything that Sasha Tripp is on is also really good. She's always a great speaker. So those are some of the ones that I kind of looked at. Lee Brown's a great speaker as well if she happens to be doing any content. So that's a good one. And then what I would say too is that the general sessions I think are great as well. So like, they're not classes like an individual class, but I think those are really, I've gotten some good content from those kind of higher level type stuff to learn motivational wise. But my big thing is finding the topics that really resonate with you and making sure that those are the ones that you're kind of hitting, because there's a lot, I would almost call them tracks, where you've got different like kind of like whether it's a tech track or you're looking at a brokerage track or a team track. So I would try to figure out which track is going to be most important to you and try to do that. The one thing that I would say is once you go to the conference and you're going to get a lot of stuff. The biggest challenge is when you come back and I've got 20 ideas, right? Just sit down, really kind of figure out where your business is at right now, whatever you get for content from these classes. What is it going to be that you're going to implement first, and do that, and then kind of put things in order, make sure they make sense in order too. It's what you learn. Because I think a lot of people come back with all these ideas and they try to do a bunch of stuff and then they do like 5 things and none of it actually works. So I would pick one thing and do it well and then move on to the second thing. Don't try to implement a lot of things at the same time and disrupt your business.
Yeah, and on that note, it's great to take lots of notes, but the notes end up getting pushed aside, as Steve said. With your full registration, that includes NAR playback.
Yes.
You can go back. I think it's for 30 or 60. I think it's for 30 days. There's actually a subscription that you can access it all year round for all of the past conferences, which is amazing. So what I've found is there's a lot of sessions that I wanted maybe other agents, some of my friends or some of my agents in my office. So I'll have a listening party, maybe a couple weeks after, to go over whatever topics. We don't advertise that, but I think that's a fair way to share the content within your office of people that maybe couldn't make it.
Yeah, and on top of that too is in the app, there's often, people miss this. There's often, if you go into that session in the app, there's downloads. So that a lot of times there's other like handouts or things that they're referencing that's either links to stuff or there's actual downloads. So I would definitely look at that as well. Make sure that you don't miss that part of it. So
good point. Yep.
Yeah, that's some great advice to kind of enrich your experience. And it's going to dovetail into my next question. One of the things you said, Steve, about attending general session, because it also gives you a chance to identify people that you might want to meet, because networking and building your network is also a big part of going to convention. But before I move on to the next question, I just want to let you know, Bob, I see your question about parking in the chat, which I'll try to get you an answer for by the time we get there. I just didn't want you to think I didn't see it. So to kind of get into that networking and that kind of connecting with people, there is just such a variety and such a quantity of networking opportunities and chances to kind of build your network with not only realtors in the country, but also realtors from all over the world, which was a big surprise for me when I got there. So what activities do you guys recommend specifically to kind of build your network while you're there? Again, I know you've kind of touched on some of these, so if you just want to reference something you said, that's fine. But what do you think's best to really build that tangible network, that good referral network?
So I'm friends with Gary because we started hanging out at conferences. Okay. I'm friends with some of the people on this that I see in the panel, the attendees list, because I started going to conferences. My thing is connect with people, especially people who've been going before, and try to say, hey, what are you doing tonight? Like, ask people what they're doing. First of all, if you can afford to stay at the hotel and stay for the entire conference, stay at the conference. Because if you try to leave and go home, things are going to get in the way in your personal life or your business life, and you're going to end up saying, just tell people, hey, I'm at a conference and I'm not available during this time. And so that, because especially when it's worse when you're, I think, in your own general state in your own city, and you're going to be pulled to do other things. And so just say, sorry, I'm away for this conference and I have to be there. And when you're there, go to everything. Like, don't be the type of person that's like, I'm going to take off and do my own thing and go, hang out, go back to my room at 8. Like, go to some of the sessions, go down and just socialize in the hotel, in the lobby area. If they have a bar or something like that, if there's events going on, there's usually something going on every single night. Just get out there and socialize. Bring a bunch of business cards with you. Get a digital business card app so that if you don't have your cards with you, you still have your phone with you. You can at least have them scan your stuff. And really try to make sure that you make it a point to get involved. And there's always ways. Sometimes, like, there's events that I remember my first conference, I wanted to go to something I didn't have. I didn't know I had to sign up for something in advance. And someone's like, sorry, I got an extra, I signed up on purpose to get an extra ticket, so you can be my guest. And I'm like, oh, great. All right. So just find the people who are already going, and try to make it a point to make sure you attend as much as possible, and just be friendly and be outgoing. That's how you're going to get to meet people. I've gotten so many referrals over the years, and I've also given out referrals to good agents, quality agents that I've met at these conferences. I gave 3 in the last 2 months to people down in the Carolina area because I met them at conferences years before. So
yeah, on that note, don't be shy. I know we're all a bunch of wallflowers and we don't talk to people. But in elevators and just get to a session a little early and introduce yourself to people around you. If you're referral based mindset, as Steve said, the Carolinas are a ripe area for New England to send people. Look at their name tags, see where they're from, hunt them down a little bit and find out where they're from. There's a lot of receptions in the evenings. They're typically for volunteer leaders, but grab one of us, grab somebody and say, hey, I need to meet people in Virginia, and most of the people that have been to these know people there from this. So lots of business cards. Don't go into a session and put 200 business cards down on 200 chairs. That is a waste of your time. Not that it's a lot of money, but it's a waste of paper. It's better to do the one-by-one type of introductions and get to meet somebody. There's a YPN event that usually sells out, but if you can get in on it, there are young and up and coming, maybe not always young, some of us go to, but they are usually early career that are really movers and shakers, and they're excited to meet other people from across the country. So those would be the things that I would make sure, and just be you, shake hands, learn, read their name badge. The name badges are this big, so you can see from a little bit across. And don't be shy. There are people that, they're all staring down. They're reading your registration badge. It's all cool.
Yeah, Gary, you really touched on a monster point real quick, Steve, is that the first timers or newcomers, new to the business. That's such an important piece of this. And not only for people that are experienced in the business to get some of these ideas, but also help some of the newcomers refine their ideas. You'll be really surprised how open and honest people are with you, even though they're competitors or whatever we're calling each other these days. So not to interrupt you, Steve, but I just wanted to touch on that, Gary. It's such a monster point.
Yeah, absolutely. So the other tip that I got, this is probably maybe 5 years ago. It was right before COVID. I flew to San Francisco. Somebody they started bringing, because I'm like, I used to like to write in the back of the business card, like a little bit about the conversation, but now everyone uses every little bit of business card. So how do you get it on there? And so, and some of them are plastic too. So someone else was doing it. I'm like, huh, smartly smart. So I bought a fine tip Sharpie and I keep it with me. And when I get a business card, after I'm done with the conversation, before I go to talk to somebody else, I'll try to kind of pull off to the side and kind of write a couple notes on there about it. And I started doing a ranking system where I kind of rank them 1 through 5. And so the ones were the ones that I'm like, I need to follow up with this person. The 5's the people that we were chatting. I don't think we really hit it off. It was kind of an awkward conversation that we were just kind of there and kind of like, oh, okay, great. Nice to talk to you. And you can tell like we're probably never going to talk to each other again. Like, and that's okay. And it's just, no, but it's just being realistic. It's like, that's like, you always have those conversations, right? Some are great and in depth, and you're like, I need to follow up with this person. Others you don't want to. And so just so that later on, you're kind of like, okay, who is this person again? You have some stuff to jog your memory. Because if you've got a pocket of like, 100 business cards, like you need to kind of figure out the ones that you're going to really need to follow up with, and then make it a point when you get back to actually put some time on your calendar, an hour a week for the next, maybe like 2 months, and spend an hour just following up with those people by just shooting them a quick text or giving them a quick phone call or friending them on Facebook. And so you're actually spending the time, taking the time you spent doing that and making it turn into something versus like it just ends up in your, your circular file in your office because it's in the trash because you really, 3 months from now or a year from now, you're cleaning out your drawer and you find all these business cards.
100%, Steve. That's such great advice to make a tangible impact on your business out of these networking connections immediately instead of just throwing them in your desk, like you said, and finding them later. I also now know why you don't return my calls. I got a bad score. What did I say?
You're at 10, Mark. Sorry, man.
That makes so much sense.
I thought 10 was good.
I know.
Oh,
like
boy.
golf, though. You guys also kind of touched on something I was going to ask you about. What is the best thing that's like not in the marketing or not on the schedule? But you both kind of touched on that. It's the in between. Just like in our business, it's the gray area, the person you meet in the lobby, at the elevator, the person that grabs you to go to the event. That's some of the best opportunities. And they don't put that on the schedule. It's not in the marketing. So not to puff you up, but it's great that you're coming here today to a webinar like this to listen to people like Gary and Steve talk about some of these things, because I definitely missed it my first couple. So it's great to hear you answer those questions before I even ask them. But I'm going to touch on one more question before we get to audience Q&A, which is you talked about first timers or newer to the business. There's just so many opportunities there. It can be kind of hard to stay focused, and you talked about some great tips to do that. But what do you kind of think is the best chance or the best opportunity for first timers to kind of navigate the conference, maximize their time, get the most out of it?
Sure. I'm a big fan of kind of a semi buddy system. Somebody knows somebody that's already been to these conferences, right? And so it's always good to hang out with them a little bit and just kind of follow their lead and get some advice on how to maximize. The one thing about early career and newer agents is we should all have that mindset. We should be revamping ourselves every single year in November, December. Act as if you've never done a stick of business before. How are you going to approach the business? We should be revamping every single year and act like we're brand new to the business and really analyze it. One thing that I always recommend people is if you hear a speaker and you really like their content, go up and meet them afterwards. That's networking. You like their content. You have an idea whether, hey, I really get this person. They will all gladly share everything off session and become your friends and associates. The other thing, which I thought was amazingly smart, was a few people go there specifically to meet people in other areas of the country and invite them to a once a month mastermind online thing. Like if you're like-minded and hey, you seem to hit it off and your business is similar. Steve and I have been in a few of those, and they don't last forever. After 6 months or a year, but you get to share ideas outside of your market area. So that to me, and we're going to have a lot of our New England family there. It isn't just marketing and networking across the country. We do referrals are the concentric circle out. You'll get a lot more in the 2-hour drive than you will a 6-hour flight.
Yep.
Absolutely. Steve, did you want to add on anything to that?
Yeah, one of the things that to kind of piggyback into what Gary's talking about, having that buddy system, we typically create like a Facebook group message with the people who are kind of like hanging out together. And then we turn on Facebook Messenger. Make sure you have Facebook Messenger on your phone, and we actually turn on the little bubble thing. So I do, at least, so it pops up on my screen, so that when you don't miss that and all your other notifications. And it's a great way to, if you have like, 5 to 10 people that you're kind of, you kind of spend some time together. Maybe not everyone's busy available because they're busy in other classes or committee meetings, but someone's like, hey, I'm hitting the expo. Oh, I have some free time too. Yeah, I'll head over and meet you there. And so you meet up, and it's a great way to kind of do that. And then when you're walking through, you're talking with some other people that you see as well. Like I got introduced, you mentioned international people. I got introduced to 3 different international people who now I'm friends with on Facebook, and we chat about different things once in a while, because I ran into to Jared at the international section as we were walking through the expo like 2 years ago. So you never know what you're gonna get. It's just a matter of trying to make every opportunity you can be valuable.
That's great advice. That's absolutely great advice. And I think just to retouch on the app, not everyone throws all their photo and information and stuff in there, but sometimes you see someone and you don't remember their name or any of their stuff. Go in the app. There's a directory in the app of everyone that's at the conference. So it's kind of easy to find someone that maybe you saw or heard but didn't necessarily know. So I hate to do it because I'm not really a tech forward person, but use that app. It's so useful. So we're going to open it up to Q&A in case any of the participants have some questions. And then I'm just going to follow up with a brief summary so get all y'all out of here. The one that I saw in the chat was related to parking, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, Gary. If you don't know the answer, we will find out for Bob and Parado. But do you know about parking? Is there going to be some free parking
It is not
opportunities?
free. No,
Okay.
I just checked with the staff, and right now it's not.
Okay.
It's not included.
That sounds great. Well, that doesn't sound great, but thank you for getting the answer. And just to kind of touch on this as well, there will be, some more information that's organized that GBAR will be sending out soon related to like some things with the info booth and some restaurants related to the Realtor Relief Fund. So you'll start to see some of these materials come out. And again, if you have any questions that you think of after this webinar, please feel free to reach out to us, and we'll try to get those answers, those questions answered in any way we can. Does anybody else in the room have any other questions? Again, feel free to type them in the Q&A section, or I guess even at this point, the chat would be fine. Just wait a sec, anybody? Sosha, you always got questions. Come on.
Make
Go
something.
ahead.
While waiting for questions, I'm gonna pose a challenge. If you are going to the conference and you've been more than once, and someone's going for the first time, make it a point to find somebody who's been for the first time and make sure that they come with you and befriend them and invite them along. Because my first time, I was that person who got invited along because I didn't know anybody. I didn't know what to do, or what, it's a really it's a great environment, great time. But if you're just left on an island, it's not as fun. So having that person who can reach out to you, I'll never forget the people who invited me along, and I appreciate that. And so just do it for other people. And that way you can actually make an impact, and hopefully they'll be the person to do that for someone else next year.
I'd like to strongly co-sign on that initiative, Mr. Medeiros. That's a wonderful idea. Everyone here has gotten the tap on the shoulder. It's part of the Realtor thing. So tap someone on the shoulder. I'm going to go over some of the highlights because I don't have any other questions. So if no questions pop up by the time those highlights are done, I think we'll let you go. But if they do, we will certainly get to answer them. Follow GBAR on socials. We have a new social media coordinator. He's wonderful. Please follow GBAR on socials. As Gary mentioned, also follow NAR NXT on socials. He flashed some of those up on the screen, and I will try to make sure to do our best to have those in materials that we send out so it's easy to get that info. But it's the best way to get the fastest info, and that's what you need with something like NAR NXT. So please follow GBAR on socials. Please follow NAR NXT on socials. To reiterate on the pricing, it is $450 for that Premier Pass, which is the premier way to attend. And if you've been before, I'm not going to say it's the only way to do it because there are other choices, because they try to give flexible options to people to make it so as many people can go. But the Premier Pass is the way to go. And that price goes up on July 1st to $550. So that's a clean $100. You can just save yourself right there. I also want to touch on those volunteer opportunities. If you know and love Boston, as so many of you do, please reach out to John or Elise, and they'll be able to get you hooked up with an opportunity, volunteer opportunity to talk about the city with people that don't know it as well. A little bit of a chance to show your pride and show your passion, show everybody else who we are locally. So please reach out to do that. And again, think about volunteering with Kelly and Gary and everyone that handles this Realtor Relief Fund. It's such an incredible experience. If you were there around in 2018, you probably got soaking wet and had the best time soaking wet you've had in a long time. So I don't mean to make promises I can't deliver on, but if you go, it'll be good.
It's not going to rain. We promise.
Yeah, whatevs. Could be like
Hey,
this. I'd
Mark,
take the rain.
if I could, one tip that we haven't mentioned is wear comfortable shoes.
Oh, yeah.
Wear comfortable clothes. It could be a long day. You know, you may not have access to your hotel close by to freshen up and so forth. So pack a couple snacks. Be ready. There's lots of coffee shops. There's lots of things that we'll access, but it's always good to pack a couple snacks so you don't feel like, hey, I spent $15 for this little snack. And comfortable clothes, not sandals, not whatever, you know, flip-flops. It is a business, you're a professional, but be very comfortable at the same time. And I think we could all do that. So that would be the thing, you know, you don't want to go and spend 3 days of hell and be uncomfortable and hungry and, you know, thirsty, whatever. Just be prepared and you'll have a great experience, we promise.
And if you do stay over and it's your first time, at night tends to be more casual.
Oh,
So,
yeah, absolutely.
so you're not going to be, if you're wearing you don't even have to wear, if you're just going to educational sessions, you don't have to wear a suit. If you're in committee meetings like Gary and I we'll probably be wearing suits, but then in the evening, it's definitely more casual. So
jeans are perfectly acceptable. I just mean no cutoffs, no, you know.
Yeah.
It's November, so that'll take care of itself, but.
Yes.
Well, thank you guys both again for coming and just spreading all that information. Thank you again to all the attendees. It's so nice to see some of these names in here. I wish I could call you all out, but I don't want to waste any of your time, so I won't. Seeing no further questions, I'm going to button things up. Thank you again once more, and I will see you before November, but I will certainly see you in November. So thank you again for coming.